Hi there, I'm Andrea Koppel, and it's time for coffee, the podcast where you get to hear firsthand what the jobs and careers that interest you the most are really like. Hey there, Java Junkies. Welcome to another K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. By the way, K-Cups come in 3 sizes, single, double, and triple shots, or roughly 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes in length. So if you don't have time to throw back an entire caffeinated career conversation, these K-Cup mini episodes of T4C can give you a quick caffeinated fix, whether you're on the go or you only have a few minutes to binge. So grab your mug and take a chug, because it's time for a caffeinated career double shot K-Cup with my guest, Jane Iredale. I try to ask all of my guests, especially those who are as successful as you, to share a time in their professional lives when they really struggled. In my case, I was fired twice in my 40s. So what was it that happened to you in your career, something perhaps that you've never shared before? And most importantly, how you persevered and a lesson that you learned in the process.
It's a very easy one for me because it was a devastating experience. When I was in the entertainment world, one of the opportunities I had was to work on a musical based on an English book called Wind in the Willows. And I wrote what's called in a musical, when you write the libretto, is called the book. So I wrote the book for that show, and we did it. We started at the Folger in Washington, and it was a musical based on Wind in the Willows. And it was a big success. It was in a small theater, and it was beautiful. And so then they thought, okay, well, let's take it to Broadway. And in my heart, I knew that it wasn't going to work for Broadway, but, you know, how can you give up that opportunity? So it was a different world for me, and we somehow got enough financing and pulled it together. But I knew I would sit in rehearsals and I would know in my heart we were going to flop. And we did, big time. We lasted 1 week. The reviews were scathing. And I knew a lot of people in the industry at the time because, of course, I'd been casting and producing, and so people knew me. And in the entertainment business, people tend to celebrate your failures. So it was very, very hard. The public humiliation from something like that is devastating. It was the first time I can remember since a little girl falling into my father's arms and just sobbing until I couldn't stop. I couldn't even go to the closing. I was devastated at the things people said, the meanness, the public meanness.
The schadenfreude, is that the word?
Yeah, it was awful. And I didn't know how I'd ever recover from it. Strangely, a year later, we got nominated for a Tony. Of course, we didn't win, but it was just such a crazy time.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to let our listeners know that I'm not the one that's snoring, listening to you. This is Cookie, your adorable dog, who is clearly not enthralled by this interview at all. So you were nominated for a Tony, but this was an incredibly embarrassing...
Oh, yeah. It was the worst thing. And it wasn't just about for me, but those people that I loved that were involved in the show, devastating for them too, and to watch their pain was awful. And what it left us all was totally broke, because we'd put so much of ourselves into the show, and we hadn't worked except on that. Nobody was getting paid. And so that was how I ended up having to take a check for $5,000 to start the company because I had no resources. None of my friends did either because they lost someone on the show. So what did I learn from that? Well, I learned that there is life after death, that sometimes those kinds of failures are more important in the sense that they make you reassess. And it's really what propelled me, even though I did continue on in the business for a while after that. It really was the one that propelled me into doing something that I felt was more constructive and healthy and better for my temperament. I also learned who my friends were and who they weren't. I remember one couple that I thought were really good friends of mine saying they weren't going to see me for a while because they felt that failure was contagious. It was a very interesting time to go through.
Thanks for tuning in to this K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. If you want to listen to our entire caffeinated career conversation, please check out the show notes for this episode. Thanks so much for listening to Time for Coffee, where the professionals in the jobs that most interest you always have time to grab coffee 24/7, no matter where you live. I have one quick favor to ask you. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Time for Coffee. Thanks so much.